Hey everyone, it's Chase with Dreamedia back for day 2 of this full house refresh. So there was a smart home system in this home as we discussed yesterday, and it was 10 or 15 years old. None of the distributed audio was working. The Sonos ports were so old, they weren't getting consistent service. I mean, the app would barely load in the house. So yesterday we went ahead and tackled and kind of rebuilt this rack. Now I've still got a lot of organization to do, a lot of toning out of data for our local TV zones and stuff, but as far as the construction of the rack, we're good to go here. We haven't plugged in our Wbox UPS yet, or any of the media servers, audio amplifiers. So basically where we left off yesterday, once I got the network in here, I kind of went off camera. I had to search around the house for the old Wi-Fi infrastructure, and I didn't get to show this yesterday. I think this is the only unit I did not unbox on camera. So this is our Araknis 820 access point. This is the top of the line Wi-Fi 6 enabled access point that Araknis has to offer. You can get super into detail on the network side with it. I love it. I have full control of both 2.4, 5 gigahertz bands, can keep clashing from happening in the house and ensure easy handoff for the homeowner as they move through their house and their phone jumps from access point to access point. So again, we have our Araknis router and our switch here. We have 5 of these 820 access points throughout the home. And today we're going to do the final network adjustments and then really dive into programming the URC system. So what that'll include is currently I have a Comcast residential and a Comcast business package. Now the residential isn't hooked up to the network at all. It is just providing cable service into the home, but it is sitting here broadcasting Wi-Fi, and I can't have that. That's the same thing for the Comcast business. I'm passing service from the business router, business modem, into my Araknis router, into my switch, spread out throughout the home to the access points as well as wired devices. So what we're going to do, and this is very important for any DIYers out there, these modems don't really cut it no matter where they are in your house, even if you have a pretty small layout. So most people will go and add Google Nest or Euro access points throughout their home. And one really important step is once that network is set up and running and you're able to connect to it, you want to log into your modems and disable the Wi-Fi band. So you want to put them into bridge mode and make sure they are not causing clashing radio waves in the house. So what we'll do today, if you're trying to figure out how to log into both residential or business Comcast, it's all online. Just type it in. The default password, username would be there, as well as the IP address to connect to. So what you'll just do is open your laptop, go to any browser, and type in, for this router, it's 10.0.0.1, sorry, modem, and for this modem, it's 10.1.10.0, something like that. If you Google it, it'll pop right up. You enter that IP address into where you would search for a website, and it'll prompt you to log in. Again, the logins are online, the default ones at least. So you'll go ahead, break into your modems, and then enable bridge mode. Make sure that your secondary network, which is going to become the primary network, so our Araknis network, is up and running throughout the home. Otherwise, when bridge mode is complete, you won't have any Wi-Fi, and it'll be hard to connect these other devices without a live network in the house. So we're going to dive into that. We're going to gut the rest of the old infrastructure here. We're going to respace out pretty much from here up our gear so that everything has room to breathe, and then we will dive into the fun stuff with URC. We'll start going to our local TV zones. There is no dedicated theater in this house. There's a 5.1 media room, 2 of them, one on the floor we're on now and one on the bottom floor, as well as distributed audio throughout the house, Lutron lighting and shades. So I can't wait to dive into the URC programming, so I got to get this network out of the way. Thanks for joining us, and let's get rolling. All right guys, so I put that access point back into the kitchen where it was installed. I just wanted to give you guys a look, make sure it came back up. Something I didn't discuss, but we are doing here, is staticking the IPs of every important device in the house outside of the Wi-Fi DHCP range. So that way, when they lose network service or they lose power long enough for the battery backup, doesn't keep the internet up any longer, is 4 to 8 hours, 4 to 8, not 48. You can do that with the Rosewater system, but we're not going that extreme here. So basically, now that all those static addresses are going to be taken care of, when the network comes back up, we're not going to run into, let's say, my iPhone reconnecting before some of this network gear here, and therefore causing clashing IPs, kicking an access point, kicking our URC controllers, any of our gear, Sonos, anything, kicking them off of their assigned IP address, and then causing issues for URC to communicate with all of these devices, because URC is looking for that specific IP address to communicate with those secondary devices. So with that taken care of, I haven't switched the Xfinity gear modems into bridge mode yet, but we're going to go ahead and pull out the rest of this old network infrastructure, and that will start with this Ruckus, Fortinet router up here. As you can see, the router was plugged directly into the wall. That is never great for power outages, power surges, the type of unstable power grid we deal with this high in the Rockies. So a big no-no, and all of our network gear from now on will be not only surge protected, but set up on a battery backup. All right. Step around the back and pull what appears to be an Amazon Fire Stick, an older one, as well as the Comcast business modem off of the top of this switch so we can get that switch out. We may end up adding an extra shelf here. It just depends on ventilation space to get this modem back in the rack. I'm kind of debating that now. So that rack will take up 2 U's. And then I'm still kind of cluttered down here. So you know what we'll do? We'll add a U. We're going to leave the amplifiers pretty spaced out. These Sonos ports don't generate too much heat, and right now they've kind of got a U built in on this 2U shelf. So I think we're going to drop our media shelf, drop our controller, drop our power one, and then we will have enough space here to put a 2U in to keep everything in the rack and clean. So I'm just going to knock that out now. So, you know, I kind of understand that we do have rack builder software where you can kind of lay out all the placement of the gear beforehand. Given the nature of the retrofit, it's a little tough because a lot of the cables are already cut to length, like network, audio, where they're going to be. And instead of drawing out the bid for really no reason, I just find it's easier to kind of play things as they lie in a retrofit like this. Of course, I did check beforehand when we spec'd all the gear in that everything would fit, right? But we've run into some obstacles along the way, and we're able to address them with rack spacing. If I came in here with a plan, I would have been wasting my time, honestly. But if it's a brand new rack, everything can be laid out beforehand. That way it's very easy to see what we're doing. Game plan on day of install. So I leave that guy in there. You may see me doing that. That's just to keep the unit from, as soon as these two are freed and I'm supporting them, from just swinging down, bumping, scratching. Just trying to be as careful as possible. All right, so I'm gonna run up to my truck, grab a ventilated 2U rack for our modems, and then I will come back in, we'll get that installed, we'll finish this up, and then we will address the fact that both Comcast modems are putting out Wi-Fi bands throughout the home. All right, so while our network is down and Comcast Business is going into bridge mode to pull down its own Wi-Fi network, we can go ahead and address the power infrastructure. So unfortunately, with the shape of this wall wart, the Comcast Business modem is in port 12. I'd prefer it in port 1. That's just kind of how the wall wart fits. But again, so we have really 4 network devices in here, even though one of the Comcast residential package is just for cable service. So 1 for cable, 1 for Comcast Business. We're going to go ahead and put our router and our switch on the Wbox here with controllable ports, so I have control of that remotely. We then have 8 ports left. So we're going to get Lutron onto 1 port, we're going to get this URC onto another port, same thing HDA, we're going to get the AVR on, so that's 4 more, and then I'm going to go ahead and fit as much of the media content as I can on this IP controlled switch. So we will go ahead and throw our Sonos ports, our Comcast, and our Apple TV on as well. So anyway, I'm gonna start wiring the power and let's get after it. Oh, actually I'm going to drop probably the Apple TV because I can reset the internet connection through it, through my Araknis network switch, because I want my Balun that's going to be sending HDMI signal to the TV in the great room back here. As I explained yesterday, it doesn't matter really how much money you invest in a Balun that's sending HDMI over cat cable. You will eventually run into a syncing issue on the display side. So what we'll do here is hook that up and publish an oversee command to the homeowner, so that when he is not getting a video image, it's just a one-click solution for him to restart that device, because the Balun will not be on the network. It is just going to be plugged in to the HDMI, the monitor out of our AVR. So I do want a way to control that device. And again, I can reset some of these network devices. I can reset their IP connection by resetting the port on my Araknis. So I feel it's more important to keep the Balun on our Wbox. So I am going to pull out my phone here and take some notes to later add into oversee on what every port is in the home. That way, when a service call day does come eventually, and the power's all tied up, all nice in the corners, we're still going to be able to figure out what device is on each port, as well as that'll help me diagnose remotely what's going on in the home based on the information this Wbox is putting out. The labeling is just super important for organization, especially when I'm configuring the Wbox later to self-heal the network in the event of a disconnection from the ISP provider. So that's actually our router over here on port 12, and on port 2 currently is our switch right here. So I'm going to go ahead and most likely leave port 11 for the Comcast residential service because they have one of those wall warts I have to watch out for. All right, so that's the MRX12 we just threw on port 3. So I'm probably going to start with the HDA next. Try and keep the URC gear next to each other. I know our network gear is already pretty spread out, but I can at least get, we'll go ahead and put Comcast as 1. So Yeah, sometimes it always doesn't work out the most organized, but again, with it labeled, you pull up a list of all 12 ports, they're all labeled, there's no questions at the end of the day. Again, I'm not getting too crazy with cable management now. Things are still going to move. So that was our amp kicking on for the first time. Now let's go ahead and get our AVR on the next port here. All right, I'm gonna step away for a second and see if our network is back up. Now we'll check on the network. So we checked back in and we successfully have our Comcast business in bridge mode. So it is no longer going to cause any interference. It's not trying to hand out its own IPs. It is now relegating all network control outside of bringing service into the house to our Araknis network router. As far as disabling the residential Comcast, I do not have the password to that Wi-Fi right now, so I could plug in to the back of it. I'll do that if I need to, but I'm assuming when the homeowner wakes up that they'll just be able to give that to me. Anyway, so we have power. We're going to go ahead and put in the most important gear next. I'm actually going to just reach back in here and see if we can fit these. It looks like we are going to be able to do that. So really quick, I'm just going to grab some masking tape and get a temporary label for Sonos 1, Sonos 2. We'll go ahead and label that in the software and everything later, just so that I have everything straight. So we'll go ahead and just label these Sonos 1 and 2 for the time being. And we will do Sonos 1 and 2 in ports that are right next to each other. So we'll get our first one wired up. And then we'll get our Balun in right next to our Sonos 1 after. All right, so Sonos 1 and 2 wired up to power. We're going to go ahead and get our Balun in and then see what we want to do with our final control port. I may leave that. Actually, I probably will put Lutron on it. Okay, so we're going to play a change up real quick. I need this port that Sonos 2 is on right now for Lutron based on the size of the plug. All right, so let me go ahead and dictate that real quick so I don't get lost. And we may leave 11 right now, and remember, once I log in and get port 1 on, I'm scanning the Oversea network so that Oversea pulls this Wbox in. As soon as that happens, I'll have full control. Something cool is we can have safe voltage on, so that with this Wbox, so that if for some reason the UPS or the 12 port is not filtering power safely, it'll go ahead and disable the rack, which may sound unfortunate, but that's a lot better than losing your investment in an entire rack, honestly. Oh yeah, 11 is going to be our Great Room Balun. Okay, well let's go ahead and get Lutron and our Balun up here. I was going to pull off the Wbox faceplate interface because of the size of the Lutron wall wart, and then I remembered we can just, it's already unpowered anyway, we can just run this cable the opposite way. Okay, right on. I'm gonna clean that up real quick. Need a couple more zip ties. Now again, I'm probably going to cut all these zip ties that are up right now. It's just a really rough mock-up at the moment. I still have a crap ton of old infrastructure that needs to come out of the rack, just given the timeline and that it wasn't a full home breakdown necessarily, even though the rack switched. You know, I still need some of these cables for baluning and getting stuff on the network locally at wherever it lives in the home. So we're going to do the best we can without blowing up our quote on this new URC system. All right, so we have our Sonos, our Xfinity, our URC amplifier for distributed audio, and our MRX12, as well as our Denon AVR, all of our network gear, and our Balun wired into this IP controlled switch. The only thing is this Comcast, so I'm going to go ahead, log into this now, enable port 1, take down our network again, get our Comcast business wired up through the power infrastructure, and I will have to disconnect the switch momentarily, but I will take care of that when this is down, because I've got some conflicting data cables back there now. And as you can see, with this recessed look, I'm still going to be able to faceplate right here and give the rack a nice clean look, since all my cable management's going the other way and nothing is sticking out past the rail. I really love that about the recessed bracket. All right, so I am kind of stuck waiting as our ORC enabled Wbox is currently updating, so it's going to actually reboot once it's done updating. As soon as it reboots, most of the network's going down. That is when I'll pull our Comcast business modem. So that I'm not sitting around, we're going to go ahead and put some of these blank plates back in. I'm thinking this is where we're going to put our Dreamedia faceplate. And I probably will put another solid here, but for right now we'll just go ahead and push my service cable back again and get a ventilated. These aren't my favorite. They came with the house. We're going to reuse them. Yeah, I think we will go ahead and put actual blank plates in here and here. Just because all of my power infrastructure is coming up and down, and then all of my network infrastructure is coming up. And again, switch right here, power right here. So this is the majority of my wire mess in the back. We'll clean it up, but even if it's all stitched up on the side really nice, you'll still see it. So I will go ahead and come back for those blank plates at a later time. But we will go ahead and all right, already starting to look cleaner. I'm going to go ahead and check on the status of our Wbox update, so I can go ahead and make the final network pull, which should be the final time the network goes down outside of once I get the UPS up online. And again, the Wbox will go ahead and run directly to our UPS, and the other devices that won't make the battery backup IP control will still be on some firm and surge protectors that the homeowner already had in this rack from the previous install. But instead of having 4 or 5 power strips hanging off the back like you saw yesterday, we're just going to try and mount one probably down here on the left side. All of my network and audio is coming up the right side of the rack by the end of this, and then all of my power will be coming up the left side. So I think that'll do best, because we could have added more IP controlled Wbox ports, but this is all we really need to keep this home up in its current configuration. We can always expand later. As you see, we have multiple areas of blank plates throughout the rack, and I will go ahead and tab up the rest of these faceplates real quick, and then we'll do our last network jump. You can get away with just 2 screws on any faceplate. I just think it looks a little nicer to go ahead and have every hole on the rack filled. I just think it makes the rack look a little more complete. All right, we're good there. I'm gonna step aside and go check on our Wbox. So our Wbox is done updating, and again, anything Wbox oversee related, when you first plug it in, you're going to have an update. So typically my course of action is to get our router online, update the router. Once it is good, get the switch online, update the switch. Once that is good, go ahead and get every access point in the house up and running. Go ahead and update all of them at once. And what that's going to allow us to do is push one transfer to the access points with our SSID and password for the Wi-Fi network. Some of the benefits of this is Araknis out of box with an open network called Araknis Initial for setup that you can just connect to without a password. And that allowed me to keep the SSID and password for the homeowner the exact same. So all these subsidiary Wi-Fi devices, their phones, laptops, any media players that are remote in the home, do not need to be rejoined to the network since they already have the credentials. They're looking for the SSID name that was kept the same from the old Fortinet/Ruckus network. And since the password's the exact same, the devices go ahead and reconnect automatically. It saves a ton of time to do it that way. Keep them the same, or go ahead and just deal with it beforehand. But I really prefer to go ahead and keep the networks the same and save a couple hours on the job site. So we're going to go ahead, take our network down for hopefully the last time. I've got some power wires crossing this data now, so we're going to move this data cable over to the right side of the rack, as well as get our Comcast business into port 1 there, which now you can see there's a green LED. It is enabled. And then I don't know if I'll put my secret sauce out, but we will be programming in the event of a network outage for the network gear to reboot in specific increments, so that way we get handshakes between Comcast, the router, the switch, and the access points. If I just power everything on at the same time, this Comcast modem is going to take a while, and then we could have a syncing issue right here. Even if the router downstream network comes up right, you have an issue. Now you're driving out to the job site because there is no internet. So we go ahead and program in the proper allowed times for these boot devices to not only boot, but to join the network and have the ability to shake hands properly. And that'll keep running. So if Comcast drops service and the system goes into a reboot on the Wbox, if after that cycle is run, it'll wait an additional set amount of time that I will set, and if the network isn't working, it'll go ahead and run that command again. That programming lives on this OvrC 12 port, which is why I love it, and I usually set that out to 2-3 hours of the network trying to reboot itself. That should cover the gap of most network outages at that point. At least in my experience, that has been rock solid. And again, when the network finally does come up and an IP shakes hand, OvrC and Wbox combo will heal the network. So let's go ahead and rip down our network for the last time here, get our Comcast on our Wbox, then I can program this for network resets, and we can keep moving on, get into the programming, get into a lot of wire cleaning. Important step. I said I haven't pushed the network reset to the OvrC rack, and there's a good reason. When I just unplugged this Comcast business modem, it would have sent, you would see the auto reboot feature. Maybe I'll show you what that looks like so that I can maybe clip this out as a shorter video for some of our clients that ask how that works. and you can see the device working in real time. But if I just unplugged that, theoretically the system would just go into a never-ending reboot, and we'd have power cycles that are unneeded at the moment, which is why I have not pushed that. Unfortunately, this Comcast, oh, there we go. We can slide that ugly piece of tape back up into our rack, thankfully. All right, so that'll boot back up. If we do have a handshake issue, we will go ahead and reboot the network infrastructure, but it's not a every time type of deal. It's a once in a while deal. We just want to be prepped for it in case it does happen. The home knows what to do to fix itself. I believe that's a very important aspect of calling a home a smart home. It should actually be smart enough to fix itself when an issue arises. And just a side note, here at Dreamedia we understand how important the home network is, and with so many clients working from home or waking up, and basically it is a must-have, especially here in the Rockies where we have terrible phone signal pretty much anywhere. We do offer mobile cell boosters for inside the house, but that wasn't right for this job in particular, especially with their Comcast business service. It's a pretty rockin' Wi-Fi network, so we do understand how difficult it is for us to come in and shut down your network and basically get in the way of your life. I understand that you paid us specifically to come in and work on the network, but we want to be as accommodating as possible. So the homeowner and I picked out 2 times over the first day where he would be away from the home. Early this morning he's at work, as well as yesterday late in the afternoon he was at work. So that is when I touched the network infrastructure. So from the client's perspective, he left when the Wi-Fi was working, he came back, the new system was up. And again this morning, he left with the Wi-Fi working, and he's going to get back to a working Wi-Fi network, and it will not get in the way of his life at all. So it's that extra next little step, and just trying to make sure everybody's happy and we're not getting in the way of your daily activities. All right, so I'm just going to step out, make sure our Wi-Fi's back up. Hey everyone, I wanted to check in really quick. So I have been working around the last 2 hours just on the rack. Where we had left off, we finalized our network infrastructure. So we took we put both of the Comcast modems into bridge mode. The one that's just being used for cable service into the house, as well as the Comcast business, which is providing the actual internet to the home. We also wired up our Wbox, got everything labeled. I will show, maybe we can edit in a bit of what the labeling looks like in OvrC, but basically if I log into OvrC now and touch base with this Wbox, I can see what is in every single port. It's labeled. The only thing I haven't done is institute the network reset functionality. I will do that at the end once I'm done unplugging cables. That's a pretty sticky situation. If I accidentally unplug one of the network pieces of gear while I am working, it'll kick the whole system into a reboot, and at that point I'll be sitting around here waiting for no reason, so that's not done. We got our face plates on the front. We still have a couple to go. I'm going to bring in a single blank. We'll get our Dreamedia branded blank in here at some point. Once I can pick that up. We went ahead and blocked off the media player rack. It just doesn't look the cleanest, and again, the back of the rack is open. It's a corrugated shelf beneath, plenty of room for the hardware to breathe. So as you can see, this pile of wires on the floor, I pulled out a few old media streamers, old Baluns that were shot, but here was just existing wire in the rack that was not being used at all in the home's functionality. So we have cleaned that out. I've started to organize our power and data again. Once I finish with every local zone in the house, then we will come back here at the end and really clean up the rack. But just wanted to touch base with you guys. I'll show you the back of the rack since I went such into detail on what it looked like when I got here. There's one power strip left, and that's because my Wbox is currently plugged into that power strip. I'm waiting on a 20 to 15 amp converter that should be here in the mail tomorrow for this Wbox 2000. It does only come in 20 amps, but again, it's a bigger battery than the 1500. We wanted to keep them online as much as possible and they work from home. So I'm just waiting for that adapter to get in. As far as these wire looms over here, I'm planning on coming back. It's in pretty rough spot right now. It's not really in my scope of work to clean it up, but I'm gonna get some fabric wire loom and go ahead and at least try and make these wires as presentable as possible. Same with the rack. There's a lot of keystones and just not the most desirable looking stuff, but again, while I'm here this week, I want to make this rack as presentable as possible. If we are able to get it in on the ground floor, you won't be looking at anything like this, nor will I sit in here for hours and hours just trying to organize the cables so that it looks good. So I'm gonna walk over, grab you, give you a peek behind the rack. Maybe we can display originally when I got here as well as what it looks like now. And then maybe we'll do that again when we're done. It's not gonna look too much different other than getting some wires to tie bars. I'm gonna leave some of the old infrastructure I'm not currently using today. Yes, I could snip it and really make the rack clean, but I don't know where all these wires run. So in good faith to the customer, I'm going to leave them even if it looks a little wonky. Who knows, as we expand the URC system in the home or as they add more URC compatible devices, I may tone out and need those wires. So we're gonna go ahead and leave them in their current state. But enough yapping, let me show you what the back of the rack looks like. Right here, I'm not actually sure what these coaxes do, but they are connected to a wire that runs up into here. So again, I'm not really sure what the cable does. If I don't know exactly what the cable's for, I'm not pulling it until I have a good idea. But worst case, we'll tuck this away for a later date, and that is just my network service cable while I'm working on the system. All right. As you can see, the wires, nothing is completely buttoned down in the back. That's why you see wires hanging around. I will get to this if I can. Most likely for the scope of this project, I will just try and get this box closed. If that means I need to cut out a hole in this and then put some rubber so the cables don't get scratched, just so that, I mean, this door needs to be able to close. It looks horrible right now, honestly. Below our standard here. So again, we have one power cord coming to this Furman that I've chosen to reutilize. I don't know if anything else is going into this but the Apple TV. So what we may do is put our cable box and Apple TV on this Furman and then just run this Furman power strip back to our Wbox, so I do have IP control of every single piece of equipment in the rack. That's just kind of how it's playing out at the moment. And as you can see, we're starting to get there. We now have all of our audio, video, and data wires, as well as coaxial over to the left of the rack, and all of our power over on the right. As you can see, I have prepped some tie bars that will come in really handy when I do my final cleanup, so that you're not looking at this. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of give you a back-end look of the process of the rack. Again, this has been one of the messiest racks I've ever taken on, and especially for a single week flip over while the homeowner is in the house, I've really just had to take my time and pay attention to everything that's going on. So thanks for joining me. I'm gonna go grab lunch, and now I will finally start to set up at least the base URC program, as well as start diving into some of my remote zones around the house, such as the great room, primary bedroom, the media room downstairs, and just kind of get a grip of the whole system, because again, I now have 2 more full days here to get the whole home done. So hopefully I'll be able to come back and clean up this rack, but I do need to get this URC system running. All right, talk to you guys soon.
To be continued in part 3. Make sure to like and subscribe, and see you in the next part.